that's what I did with Dolly. And, after interviewing Dolly Parton, we got done with the interview and she taps me on the arm and goes, Eric, I forgot how well you prepare for interviews. Thank you. And it's like going, and that's Dolly Parton, that you're interviewing, the icon.
Welcome back, everybody, to the UK Americana Bar Show video podcast. Thank you for joining us. Before we bring you part 2 of our interview with our man in Nashville, Eric Dahl, just enough time to say thank you, George Dukas, for lending us some of your music from your new great album, Long Way From Home. Brilliant album it is too. So, Eric now tells us about the strange relationship that he built with B.B. King after buying his guitar in a thrift shop. Very strange. So, Mr. Nashville Music USA in the UK Americana Bar today, Mr. Eric Dahl.
And then before she had to go interview with some people in Germany right after me, and I said, could we possibly have a picture with Dolly so that we can promote this because it's going to be airing, across all the United States and the different TV stations. And the publicist, Sam, you'll so appreciate this because I know we both get this. The publicist said, no, Dolly doesn't have time. She has to get to the next interview, Eric. I'm like, okay. Dolly walks up and hugs me. So the picture that you've seen with me and Dolly said, oh, there's time for Eric.
I went to a festival about 2 years ago and I was told the same thing. Hey, Sam, there's some A-listers here. Please don't be kind of a nuisance and this, that and the other. And I was took aback by that. But you're right. The big stars all come running to you. And there's such fun, and you get a bit confused, and you say, "Hey, who are these guys at the festival? These big guys? What are they on about? These big A-listers all want to talk to you, and it was fantastic, One thing before I forget, must ask you again. Lots of people ask me, Eric, about your relationship with B.B. King. Okay, so is the story true to our viewers that they're watching? You went into a thrift shop, which over here is like a charity shop. You found a guitar, and I don't know if you knew what the guitar was or whatever, but it turned out to be B.B. King. So could you tell us the story about that, please?
It's so funny, Sam, because I was meeting with some artists the other day, and they're like, and it's almost become a myth. Yeah. Because the story, because it happened, all the way back in 2009 when I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. And like you said, I was doing, there in Las Vegas. And certainly, you and I doing the interviews and all the kind of media stuff we do. I also work with guitars because you and I are both musicians. And so the pawn shop had brought me in, the thrift shop, and said, hey, are you interested in this? And so I ended up buying this Gibson Lucille. At the time, I had no idea that it was B.B. King's. I was hoping maybe he played it for like 5 minutes and then he sold it or gave it away or whatever. So I take it home, Sam, and just like you do with it's like I clean the guitar, clean the sweat off, cut the strings off, and then I'm researching it for like 2.5 months, reaching out to George Gruen, Walter Carter, the top people, Norm at Norm's Rare Guitars in Los Angeles, and nobody knew what this was. Yeah. But on the back of the guitar, on the back of the headstock, it said Prototype 1. And so I knew it was different. It was a different guitar when you find something like that. So finally, 2.5 months into this, Gibson Guitars calls me up and goes, Mr. Dahl, you have, a Gibson B.B. King Lucille. And I'm like going, yeah, you're not helping me. I got 3 more in my guitar room. They're like, no, you don't understand. This is the one that we gave Mr. King for his 80th birthday, and he would like it back. And so that's how the whole thing went down. And then, as you know, Sam, I wouldn't take money from B.B. King or from Gibson because that's not what a musician does. It's a stolen instrument, which I had no idea when I bought it. And so then Mr. King wanted to meet me. So I got to go to B.B. King's office there in Las Vegas and return his stolen guitar, Prototype 1, B.B. King Lucille that Gibson had given him for his 80th birthday. And he gave me a Lucille, signed it for me, thanked me, gave me a book, gave me t-shirts, guitar picks. I got to spend 45 minutes with B.B. King talking about Bo Diddley and about all of these people that were his friends. And then after we got done with that, I reached back out to Mr. King and said, hey, do you mind if I do a book, on your Lucille, on your guitars?
Yeah.
And so he allowed me to do that too. So, the first one came out in 2013. The second edition came out in 2020. covering all of Mr. King's guitars from his first one, his Stella, that he had back in Itta Mississippi, to, making Gibson Lucille's. And so, yeah, and then the crazy part is that, the book came out in 2013, the original, like I said, and then Mr. King stopped touring in 2014, Sam, and then he passed away in 2015. So that guitar that I returned ended up going up for sale in 2019 in an estate auction, and it sold for $198,000 American. And so I paid a little over $2,000 American for it. So
I know I'm going to get told off because I was interviewing somebody a little while ago, and I remember that story because they mentioned that they'd worked with B.B. King in Zurich, I think it was, in Finland. And I thought that the guitar was called Betsy, so I got that wrong.
No, Lucille. But in the whole story, Sam, was that he named her. What happened was, once again from the history, Mr. King was playing a party in Twist, Arkansas, back in the day, and ended up there was a fight, and the house caught on fire, and so he ran back in the burning house to get his only one guitar, and he got it out of there, almost died in the burning house. And then the next day he found out that the fight was over a woman named Lucille.
Oh my God.
So every guitar after that, BB named Lucille, including the one that I returned to him. And so, so a private collector now has that guitar that I returned. But also if people go, go ahead, Sam.
Do you know recently Paul McCartney got his original bass back? That was in the press, I think it was today or yesterday. And for an unknown figure, whatever, because you can imagine it, but for him to have his original bass. Now, I think from memory, they was gigging the Beatles back in the early days, and it was in the back of a truck or wherever it was, and then it went back out and it wasn't there anymore. That's what I think how the story goes. But for him to get that back, I mean, he's been after that for years and years, and that only came to light about 12 years ago, about how it, and they had to go through all the due diligence and the research and all that. But he's one happy bunny, Paul McCartney, now.
He is, it's the same thing that happened with Peter Frampton on his Les Paul, Sam.
That's right.
To where that went down in that plane crash, and he thought the guitar burnt up, and ends up it comes back to him. So when I interviewed Peter here in Nashville, he's got a little studio here in a house in Nashville, and he comes walking in with that Les Paul, the Phoenix, that he got back from the plane crash, and he never thought he would see that guitar again.
Yeah, they're quite stories.
I mean, such great guitar stories.
Yeah,
like we were talking too with when Danny was mentioning, listening to your son listening to Joe Bonamassa. When I interviewed Joe Bonamassa here in Nashville, and so we were at Carter Vintage Guitar, and I'm talking with Joe. I said, "Hey, do you remember that time that BB King had to leave your recording session and go get his stolen guitar?" And Joe goes, "Yeah, I remember that." I said, I'm kind of that guy. And Joe's going, "What? You're kind of what guy?" I'm like, "Kind of the guy that accidentally bought this stolen Lucille and returned it to BB King." And so Joe is just amazed by it because Joe collects guitars and amplifiers and all that stuff too, and once again is an incredible blues musician, Sam.
There's loads of great stories about guitars. I mean, there's the great one about Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton. That is an unbelievable story. But listen, before I let you go, I put something in there. What's the word on the streets?
It's so interesting. Right now, everything is gearing up, Sam, for the CMA Fest coming in June. So there's going to be, and if you remember right, years ago, that used to be fanfare. And so you have you have a lot of fans that come into Nashville, and you have all these stages. You have the major artists playing everywhere during CMA Fest. So that's coming up in June, and right now that is
in the world, wasn't it?
Yes. So that's the big show right now. And once again, I can share with you a lot of the artists, and I'm sure you and I are going to be having some of these artists on the show.
You lucky people.
Yes. And so, but the CMA Fest, once again, if people get a chance to come in for it, it's just amazing, Sam. Just the A-list artists, the up-and-comers, virtually any music artist that is not out on tour comes into Nashville for CMA Fest.
You know, it's funny, Eric. I mean, honestly, truthfully, I know so many people that are just going. So many of them, and plus also down the road or a little bit further is Gracelands as well. So they kind of do a nice little trip, and loads and loads of people. So it must be banged out over there this time of the year. You know what I mean? It really must be.
It really is, because, you know, also, as you mentioned, Sam, with the Elvis stuff, you know, with the new movie Priscilla that came out, and certainly the previous Elvis movie, amazing, that came out a year or so ago. And so there's a lot of ties to Memphis, Tennessee, you know, which is about 4 hours away from Nashville. But you have those different music areas, you know.
Amazing. Yeah, incredible. Well, look, Eric, do you know what? Thank you for taking the time to speak to us. I really do appreciate it. And God, am I looking forward to talking to you in the future. So you won't be getting away now. So for the minute, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eric Dahl, we'll catch you again next time. Mr. Eric Dahl, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I'll tell you what, it's great being your Nashville reporter here. Can't wait to do some more stories with you, my friend. And you keep up with those great interviews also, Sam.
Bless you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thanks, Eric.